Hey everyone, hope you're well out there. Today on Awesome Riff of the Day and How to Play It, we're going to have a look at the classic opening refrains to Life's Been Good by the Clown Prince of rock and roll, Joe Walsh. Now, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Joe Walsh is far and away my favorite personality in the history of rock and roll music. If there's one famous musician that I would love to sit down with and have a few drinks, despite the fact that neither one of us drink anymore, it would be Joe Walsh. Few rock stars partied harder and wilder during the 70s and 80s and lived to tell the tales than Joe Walsh. Maybe Keith Moon, but he didn't follow through on the whole live to tell the tales part of that equation. The goddamn stories that Joe Walsh could tell would, I'm sure, be an absolute hoot to listen to over a few cold ones. Though apparently he doesn't remember much of it anymore, unfortunately, as he pickled himself pretty good with vodka and cocaine throughout much of the 70s and 80s. Plus, he dated Stevie Nicks for quite some time, so there's that as well. I'm pretty sure that didn't help him a whole lot with his cocaine addiction. It was actually the reason why he eventually left Stevie, because Joe was convinced that one of them were surely going to end up dead from the amount of cocaine that the two of them as a team were shoving up their noses. Both Stevie and Joe credit this split as a big part of the reason as to why they both managed to live beyond their 30s, and both eventually managed to kick their devastating mutual habit. However, the split was absolutely devastating to Stevie Nicks at the time, and she has stated in books and interviews and whatnot that she's only ever had one true love in her lifetime, and that was Joe Walsh. And as a result, and despite the split, they're still very good friends to this day. And like I said, Joe is still here, still going strong, still performing, and still making music, and despite his self-professed lack of memory of much of the antics he got up to during the 70s and beyond, he still seems pretty coherent, affable, good-natured, and witty in his mid-70s, unlike some other rock stars from that era, who, without naming names, who overindulged in the excesses of the rock and roll lifestyle during that same period of time. And speaking of Joe's wit, I just want to play a short clip and hope I don't get in trouble for doing so, of Joe explaining his songwriting process for the track Life's Been Good during a spoken word show from a number of years back. It's quite charming and funny, and you know, as is typical of Joe. So let's check that out right now, shall we?
The most questions I ever get asked are about Life's Been Good, that song I wrote. And I'm tired of them. So once and for all, I wanted to explain them to you, and will you please go tell everybody you know? So there's a room in my head where I have all these bits and pieces, and when it's time to write a song, I take them and put them on a table like a jigsaw puzzle and see what fits. So that's what I did. So I had this one idea that I thought was pretty cool, and it goes like this. Okay, I had that idea. So I thought, well, that's a good beginning. That gets me, you know, there. But then I had no idea what to do. So I had this other thing from that was going to be this other song that has nothing to do with the beginning. And that goes like this. And so I put that on there. Because it worked. It's in a different key, but it worked. And that way I didn't have to think about the words yet. I just had more of the song, right? So then, now what do I do for the words? I had this other idea that for reggae, like from listening to Bob Marley too much. That was... Okay, so that's the words. I have a mansion, forget the price.
I love that. I'll link to the full video down below in the description box if you'd like to check it out, as the whole thing is just as enjoyable and fun to listen to and watch. He's such a silly, humorous, and charming storyteller. In total, the video is about 8 minutes long, but it's worth every second. Regardless, before we dig into how to play this one, I just want to mention that in a few days or so, I'm going to have a look at how to play the fantastic guitar solo to this one. Very good intermediate level guitar solo. So keep an eye out for that one, please. But for now, let's move on and learn how to play the classic and very cool riff to Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh, shall we? All right then, let's have a look at the very cool riff to Life's Been Good by Joe Walsh from 1978. And we're in standard tuning for this one. We are on a Telecaster, get a little bit of that telly twang going. And this tutorial should bring us up to about the midway point of the song where the solo is. And we're going to have a look at that solo in a follow-up video to this one, probably within a few days to a week. But for now, let's have a look at how to play Life's Been Good. So we're starting with a bend, 2nd fret of the A string, half step bend release, and then you're going to pull it off to open A, all in one motion. And then you're going to slide into 4 of the A string with your ring finger. And on the upstroke, you're going to catch this double stop here at the 2nd fret of the D and the G string. And then we're into this. Back to the open A, slide back into 4 again, and this time we're, instead of going to the double stop, we're going to go to the 2nd fret of the D string. Now we're going to drop on the 3rd fret of the A string, slide it into 4, and then on the upstroke we're going to catch that double stop again. Kind of like that, a little bit of a quicker slide from 3 to 4. And then a double hit of the A power chord before moving on. And now we're into this. Back to the bend here at the 2nd fret of the A string, but this time we're going to give it a little double pump before pulling it off to open A. Sliding back into 4 again of the A string, catching that double stop on the way back up. And then into this. So now we're sliding back into 4 again from the open A, back to 2 of the D string. Now instead of sliding 3 to 4, we're going to bend 3 to 4. We're going to grab the 3rd fret of the A string, give it a very quick little half step bend, and then immediately into a D power chord, which is just the open D and the 2nd fret of the G string here. A lot of tabs will have you going into a full D chord right here. But if you watch Joe play this one live, every time, you can see all of his fingers sitting here free, and he's just sitting on a D power chord. He's not going into a full D. He's just hitting a D power chord, which is, you know, it's D, but it's not a full D. And then we're into these little mutes. So little mutes, mostly on the D and the G string. Into the power chord, 2 more mutes, into an A power chord. So up to that point. Now, back to the bends. Now we're grabbing the 2nd fret of the A string again, and now we're giving it 3 bends, and we're picking each one, really digging in. And then again, after the 3rd one, you're going to pull off to open A. Playing that same riff again, sliding into 4 from the open A, down to 2 of the D, sliding 3 to 4 of the A, catching the double stop on the way back up. and then again 2 more hits of the A power chord before finishing up. Now this section here on the studio version, he just goes back and plays this again. But live, nearly every single time at this point in the riff, he'll do this. And that's just a slide from back into 4, down to 2 of the D, sliding 4 back to 2 of the A, and then off to open A before finishing up. And then playing that riff again, which we already learned. Sliding into 4, down to 2, quick bend of the 3rd fret, and then off to the power chord there at the D. I hope that was clear. So let's run through that because now it changes. So up to that point. Now we're into these little sliding double stops, descending double stops on the D and the G string, 5th fret, back to 4, back to 2. So do the first slide from 5 to 4 with your ring finger, and then catch the 2 with your index. So you're going to do that twice, but the second time, the slide from 5 to 4 is pretty much double timed. Kind of like that. And then into this. Sliding into 4, grabbing the 2 of the D again. Open A, and then dropping into this little chord here. 7th fret of the D string, 9th of the G, 10th of the B. And then you're going to hit it 2 more times and slide out of it. Now this section, there's 3 guitars, maybe 4 guitars going on here. One is still playing the main riff from this. So one guitar is still playing that, you know, coming out of these sliding double stops here. And, you know, what Joe is playing live is what I'm going to show you because, you know, for one guitar, if you're going to be playing this on one guitar. And this is what, and then there's also slide guitar going on here as well. And then Joe usually plays this part live, so. That's what Joe does live. And so the first part, dropping into that little chord, which is kind of simulating the slide part that he never does live. And then we're back to the slides again. Now we're going to jump up here, do those same little sliding, descending double stops, but now we're going to do them from 10 to 9 to 7. And then drop into a double stop on the 7th fret of the D and the G, which is the D chord. And then back to an A power chord, and then back into the second half of these slides. So the whole little slidey part. Sometimes he'll do this at this part. Jumping into that little chord, 7 of the D, 9 and 10 of the G and the B, before going off to the D, the double stop at the 7th fret. So he mixes it up, but you know, like I said, there's a lot of different guitars going on during this part. And but this is what Joe usually plays live. we're into the acoustic part, and I'm going to play it on this. That little section there. Little D shape, little F chord here at the 5th fret position. Bouncing it off to a C major here, but just on the bottom 3 strings. Index on 3 of the high E, pinky and ring on 5 of the G and the B. And then moving back into F actually, but in a different position. Now we're barring the 1st fret of the B and the E, and our middle finger on the 3rd fret of the G. And repeat. Now the second half. So we're going from A minor, barring the 5th fret of the G, B, and E, off to a G major, but just on the bottom 3 strings, barring the 3rd fret of the B and the E, middle finger on the 4th fret of the G, back into A minor, but in a different position this time. Now open E, 1st fret of the B, middle finger on the 2nd fret of the G. Back to the first one. Back to A. And then the final little part there just before the first verse starts. A minor, open, and then hammer back into the A minor from the open strings. Now the studio version, at this part during the verse, the guitar is just not very prominent here, but he's going from C, open D, and then 2 to 3 of the D string, and then dropping into an F. Sometimes he'll play this like this, the F, just going from F, working it back to the 2nd fret, the 3rd fret, back to the 2nd fret, back to open on the D string in an F shape. Before dropping into a C. But the studio version is just 1 note, and it's played kind of lightly in the background. 3 to 2, open, D, onto the C note at the 3rd fret of the E, and it just repeats. And that repeats throughout the first verse. But like I said, sometimes he'll play the full chords. Kind of like that. And then we're into the chorus, and the chorus, again, lots of guitars going on, doing different things, and this is what one of them is doing. So it starts 3, 2, open A, 3rd fret of the low E, the G note. And then he's going to go 5, 3 of the D string, 3, 2, and then 2, 3, 2, 3, 5. Kind of like that. Into a C. You know, you can just play the A, D, and G string. Into a G again. And then this again. Back to C. Full C this time. Pick down the 4 middle strings of this C chord. Now ride it back to the 2nd fret of the A string and lift everything else off into an A power chord to finish the chorus. And that's what one guitar is doing. Another guitar is hitting these little triads here at the 10th fret of the G, B, and high E string. Just hammering those under this kind of rhythm. Right, just hammering these little triads. And then we're into that little section there. A minor off to G major. Just barring the 5th fret of the G, B, and E string. Off to G major, barring the 3rd fret of the B and E, and the 4th fret of the G. And then he's grabbing these little double stops on the 5th fret of the B and the E, sliding into 7. Might be doing those on the upstroke. Back to A, back to G, and then finishing up like that, sliding 5 to 7, back to 5, back to 3 with the double stops. And then into the C, and that is the end of the chorus. And then there's the little boop, 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 that little section there just before the solo. And but we're going to have a look at that solo. So that's it for Life's Been Good. I certainly hope you found that helpful and enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done that. That would be awfully nice. Hit that little notification bell so you know when I upload something new. And you guys take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.